The past few months in Microsoft Flight Simulator have been some of the best experiences I've ever had in Simulator for years, maybe ever. That isn't speaking lightly either. I'm getting on a bit, as I was there for the old 8-bit era during the 80s and the 16-bit era during the late 80s and early 90s. In fact, I've always had a keen interest in the best video sims and video games can offer. So it kind of feels that culminated for me in a lot of ways with a great new H.O.T.A.S setup and flight sim, along with the Tobii Eye Tracker. In this video then, I want to talk about my experience with my new setup, and you can see me here with that setup flying over my home area of the North York Moors. So the Virpil controls were sent to me for review back in April by Virpil. We were chatting a bit back and forth for a while about what type of setup I could try. I tend not to review products or give impressions of them very often unless I feel they're very special, so it's something I had to think about for quite a while before I actually went ahead and did this. Anyway, in the end, I thought I would give it a try, and Virpil sent over a whole bunch of equipment arriving in some very chunky boxes. Since then, I've been putting them through their paces in a flight sim, and to my surprise, I like them a lot more than I thought I would. In fact, I can't imagine going back to any other setup at this point. So my previous H.O.T.A.S was a Thrustmaster Warthog. Yeah, sure, it's a big heavy H.O.T.A.S and it sat very heavily or very comfortably on my desk. Anyone who's used the Warthog will know it's very well built and does an excellent job with Microsoft Flight Simulator, Elite Dangerous and many other sims as well. Ultimately, I was expecting the Virpil controls to be along the similar lines to the Warthog. Boy, how wrong I was. Turns out they are on another level entirely. So I want to talk about why I feel that way. Before I do that though, I want to clarify that this isn't a review. I'm not about to jump into the deep technical details of these controls, but if you are interested in those details, I will link a few excellent videos below so you can go and find out all about that. Also, this isn't a paid or sponsored video. Whilst Virpil did very kindly send over the controls, they did so with no strings attached. In fact, it's taken me about 3 months to even get to making this video. But I guess that's kind of a good thing, as it's given me plenty of time with the setup. So let's talk about that setup a bit then. My new setup is desk mounted, as you can see. The mounts come from Virpil as well. They're solid, built from heavy grade metal. The pressure locks attach them easily to the desk, and they're very heavy. You know, I was actually wondering if they would be able to hold the controls in the end, because both the throttles and the sticks are also extremely heavy, especially with the combined weight. I was wondering if the desk mounts would actually wiggle or move when you're using the sticks when using the controls, yet they're super solid and remain rock steady when in use. The joystick and the other control panels here can be easily attached to the mounts. I like this because it frees up my desk space, which you can see is pretty limited. It also meant that I was finally able to permanently get the massive Warthog off my desk. In terms of the stick, both the base and the grip are separate, and this has both pros and cons. The positive side is that it means that things are super flexible. You can find a base and a grip that perfectly suits your needs. On the other hand, the cost racks up super quick. In fact, Virpil is super expensive all round. In this setup I have here the Mobiuz T50CM3 base, which is priced at €289, and the Alpha Prime grip, and this comes both in the left and right-handed variants. The grip is priced at €249, so that's well over €500 just for a joystick. Now I think a lot of people, quite rightly and quite understandably, myself included, might find that very hard to justify. For comparison's sake, the Thrustmaster Warthog, which isn't just a joystick but rather a full-on H.O.T.A.S, is also pretty expensive, priced at €500. That gets you both the stick and the throttle. Both of these from Thrustmaster are extremely high quality and a huge step above the plastic sticks from other manufacturers. That said though, the Virpil controls are pretty much that same step up again. What the Warthog is to the £100 setups, the Virpil controls are to the Warthog. It's very hard to compare these on a like-for-like basis, simply because Virpil builds, well really they are so good. They really are in a league of their own. Another thing you might find to be a downside with this Virpil base is that it requires mounting. It isn't suitable for a desktop straight out of the box. You either need mounting brackets, like the ones I'm using, or a desktop plate, both of which are separate purchases. Okay, so a little bit of info on the sticks then. Virpil claim that the base has a sensitivity of 0.006 degrees, and whilst I have no way to actually test that, what I can say is that the sensitivity of this is far beyond anything I've previously used. It's extremely accurate, so much so that it actually took me a while to get used to. The slightest adjustment on the stick can be felt inside the sim, and to clarify, that doesn't mean that a slight motion on the stick leads to wild swings of my plane. Instead, it means that I can make the smallest micro adjustments of my plane with extreme ease. And that is the first significant change to my overall experience with Microsoft Flight Simulator. And it's one that is now impossible for me to let go of. Being able to make all those small adjustments when flying really adds to the overall experience. In terms of tension for the stick, I found the base to be a little on the stiff side when the grip was attached directly to the base. This turned out to be not a problem for me, however, due to the way I mounted the base. The base is fairly low compared to my desk, and to ensure the grip was within reach, I used Virpil's grip extension. And this has two benefits. It allows for finer motion on the stick. It also means that I have greater leverage. All that said, it's worth noting that both the tension and the response curve of the Virpil bases can be physically changed. The tension can be changed by swapping out the springs. The response curve can be changed by swapping out internal cams. The different cams allow for progressive linear, soft center, and no center stick profiles. As for the Alpha Prime grip, this has a ton of buttons and options. In addition to the main axis, there's also a twist stick capability, and I did use this a lot. I'm not a fan for pedals in most games. I'd use them if I actually have to, and call me old school, call me a bit of a funny duddy or a stick in the mud, but I actually prefer stick grip or twist grip or other where that option is available. But if you're not a fan of that, it is something that can be physically locked away if you don't want it, so there is plenty of options here. Now elsewhere, there's a brake lever on the stick here, a dual position flip trigger as well, 3 4-way hats, 1 2-way hat, and a scroll encoder as well. It means that virtually every single function you'd need in any of your sims can be bound directly to the stick, and if not there, then one of the other control panels. And this meant no longer relying on the keyboard for any commands. Very, very simple and very straightforward to use. So yeah, this is a wonderful experience, and it has added immensely to my overall experience with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now moving over to the two control panels, I have the H.O.T.A.S 50 and the Mobiuz T50CM3 throttle. Both of these are very different and serve different roles, yet they also complement each other very well. You can see them on my left hand side in the video here. Now you can attach both of these to your computer both at once, and Microsoft Flight Simulator will detect both of these independently from each other, and then you combine any functions you want to each of them. Both are mounted to the same desk mount, and you can actually mount them vertically to each other as I have here, or you can actually attach them side by side if you so want. So that means either way, they're conveniently located and extremely easy to use, and you can see just me nicely, snugly sitting between the two of them. Ultimately, there's so many buttons here, so many switches, that I was a little bit overwhelmed as to how to bind them all in Microsoft Flight Simulator. In fact, not all of these buttons actually have functions attached to them yet. And it's one of those situations where the more I fly, the more I actually realise, this function here could actually be applied to that button over there. And, well, there's so many buttons available that no matter how long I play, there's always another option available eventually, something that I can just keep on adding to. Now, the throttle is the one I really do prefer. I like the H.O.T.A.S as well a lot, but the throttle really here is just so nice. I've used the Warthog throttle for a very long time, and swapping over to the Virpil one here was just nice. Before the Plusmitre Warthog, I did have a Cytec X52 as well. That's back in the days when those were still a thing. Now ultimately, I will say that I didn't use the H.O.T.A.S or the throttle as much as I do the stick. After all, when you're flying a plane, you constantly are on the stick. So if for me, it was a toss-up between just not having, well, if I had to choose one or the other, if I had to choose a throttle or a stick, I'd definitely go for the stick every time here. The stick is very nice, and it would complement pretty much any other control panel you might have access to. If you've got another throttle that you can independently connect to your PC, then I'd recommend going for one of these sticks, no questions asked. But if you do have the funds available, and if you really do fancy a new throttle or a new control panel as well, then there's nothing out there that compares to these Virpils. The whole setup is very, very nice indeed. Now, in case you're wondering, you may have noticed some of head tracking going on with throughout this video. That is thanks to the Tobii Eye Tracker, which you can see there mounted just below my monitor. In fact, I wouldn't be without that now. I use that every single time I'm flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. A steady fixed cam is just a no-go for me when it comes to sims. Microsoft Flight Simulator supports the Tobii Eye Tracker natively though, so there's no problems there at all. And in case you're wondering as well, the monitor, this is an ultra-wide monitor. It's a BenQ Mobiuz, the exact model numbers on the screen right here. So there you have it. That's a bit of a look at my current setup and a bit of discussion and my thoughts on the Virpil control setup. These are very, very nice, and yeah, as I said, a lot of trouble going back to anything else. Thankfully, I don't actually have to. I'm going to be using these until they wear out, and imagine that's not going to happen anytime soon. These really are that robust. At any rate, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. Very much appreciated. Do check out the links on the screen right here if you want to watch another video. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time, and do take care.